Welcome to the Frontline Herbalism podcast with your host Nicole Rose from the Solidarity Apothecary. This is your place for all things plants and liberation. Let's get started. Hello, welcome back to the Frontline Herbalism podcast. This is episode 9. I can't believe it, nearly finished in our series collaborating with MSDN, the Medical Self-Defense Network, who we introduced in episode 1, and we talk about some of the principles of medical self-defense in episode 2. And then there's some amazing interviews with medics and organizers around the world, from as far as East Tennessee in the so-called US to France, which was like the most recent episode. But this interview is with Matilda, who has been living in North East Syria the last 3 years and responding to and working in a healthcare context. In the episode, we talk about responses to an outbreak. We talk about training and building infrastructure for medical self-defense and how this is all working in a kind of revolutionary context. So we dive into a little bit of the context of Rojava, like of North East Syria, and the revolution that happened and how people are still, constantly in the process of rebuilding and changing and growing society towards more kind of liberatory ends. And I think it's really interesting. I think it's really, really inspiring. And I hope you enjoy the interview. And once again, check out the show notes for all the links and information. Okay, thanks. Okay, hello. Thank you so much for coming on the call. If you're able to introduce yourself, your pronouns, and any political affinities or projects you'd like to include, that would be amazing.
Hello, it's so nice to be here. My name is Matilda. I'm a nurse. I've worked for many years in emergency rooms in Europe. I also worked a little bit as a street medic. Generally, I come from a little bit of a feminist background, and in this sense also got to know the women liberation movement in North and East Syria. And then decided to go there in the frame of MSDN, the Medical Self-Defense Network, to go to North East Syria and work in a health context there. I worked in different hospitals, different educational programs, and I'll talk about this today here.
Amazing. So you're currently living in, like you mentioned, in North East Syria, and I'm sure many listeners will be aware of what's been happening there, but I'm sure some people are probably new to the whole region, and to the struggle and the history there. So I just wondered if you could give a little bit of a summary of the revolutionary situation and what it's like there at the moment.
Sure. So to start at the beginning, in 2011, during the Arab Spring uprisings, also in the northeast of Syria, the mostly Kurdish population started uprisings against the state powers. At the same time, also Kurdish people have been struggling in Turkey and other parts of what was formerly Kurdistan. So they reached some level of autonomy. And could hold that until in 2014 ISIS started attacking. So for the years of 2014 until 2019, the people in northeast Syria together, the Kurdish people, the Arabs, the Syrians, there's many different cultures living together, and they together were fighting against the ISIS invasion and managed in 2019 to defeat the last stands on strongholds of ISIS. But at the same time, Turkey started invasions. So the first one was in 2018 in Afrin. Turkey invaded the areas of the self-administration, is what the areas are called, the self-administration of North and East Syria. So Turkey invaded the area around Afrin and occupied this. And then in 2019, also in the area around Serikaniye and Ain Issa. So that's the state now, is that there's some areas that are under the self-administration and there's some areas that are under occupation from Turkey. And there's still fightings going on. It's not a full-on war, but there's a lot of drones and drone strikes. There's sometimes smaller attacks. There's a lot of artillery thrown over the borders. And also in the occupied areas, there's a lot of violent attacks against civilians happening. So this is kind of the situation for the war. And in the areas of the self-administration, there's the confederalist idea that to set up different communes and different areas, organizing themselves and then working together in different councils. So this is like the political system that they are setting up now. They call it democratic confederalism. And in this confederalist system, there's different committees and different organizations or organizational groups. So there's like a health committee, there's a justice committee, there's women committees always. And all of these on a local basis organize themselves and then come together in bigger, like the city, the village, the region. They send delegates to the higher up structures and then organize from the bottom up. So this is the situation now, that there's still ongoing threats of invasions from Turkey. The region is not recognized by other state powers, so they are very limited in what they can do. And because they're under embargoes from the Turkish side, but also from the Iraqi and the Syrian regime side, they have a lot of problems with logistics, getting medication and things in and out, getting doctors to come there, getting help from the outside is very little. And on the inside, they don't have a lot of resources and they can't produce a lot of things. The only thing that they can produce is oil, so they have to use the oil to kind of keep the economy going and support the people. So it's a very difficult situation with having the ongoing threat from the outside and the embargo. And of course, trying to set up a completely new system and educating the society is a very difficult process. But being there and seeing like the progress they've made over the last 10 years, I find it's very impressive that even though they have these like extremely difficult circumstances, they are actually managing to build a society that is, from the bottom up, organizing itself, bringing different cultures together and to collaborate with each other that have been mostly fighting against each other for many, many years. So this is it's a very positive and very impressive progress they're making in this sense.
Amazing. And I think it's been a big kind of lighthouse for inspiration around kind of revolutionary change and ways of organizing society very differently. And I'm sure I will ask you like many more questions about the region. I just wondered, in the context of like the Medical Self-Defense Network, like what does your kind of medical work involve?
Yeah, so on the practical level, during the war, we were treating injured people. We were evacuating people from dangerous areas, evacuating injured. So we were finding injured, treating them, and then bringing them to hospitals, supporting also in the hospitals, depending on what people's skills are. Then outside of the direct war, we were doing first aid trainings with local people, by going to these different communes and different organizations, and giving them like 1 or 2 days basic training so that they can treat themselves if one of them gets injured, or they can help, like if there is war or if there is a drone strike, that people can help the injured. We also prepared medical backpacks that the materials we got from the self-administrations, and then we kind of sorted it and put it together into different backpacks or little pouches, and then gave them to different people or different places, so that there would be medical materials all along the occupied areas or in like central places, so that if there's something happening, they're easily accessible. So that's like the directly practical things we were doing. We are working together with the local health committee. So a lot of it is building relationships, also seeing what is their situation, what is needed, what is things that we can help with. Is there things needed from outside that maybe we can use our privilege? With my passport, I can travel, which a lot of Syrian people don't have a passport. So then if something is needed from Europe, I can go there and I can use connections that I have to doctors and hospitals and NGOs to see if there is a possibility to send different materials that are needed. Now we have a project that there's a group that is self-producing medications. So we're trying to coordinate now between this group and the health administration to see what medication is already produced inside of North and East Syria, what is not produced there but would be really needed, so that then this group can set up a lab to make this medication locally in Northeast Syria, so like to bring the materials that would be needed for this, and then also give educations to local people so that then they can produce their own medication and they're not dependent on the Syrian regime or on Turkey. So the idea is to, as much as possible, support the autonomy of the people and of the self-administration. We have this, I think you already did an interview, this 3D printing project to 3D print tourniquets, which the same idea, to like find ways how we can produce needed things ourselves, so we're not dependent on state powers or on outside states and entities, but we can produce the things we need ourselves, so we're not dependent on them. And then if there's another embargo and they just close the border, then we are not in the situation that we need medication and we can't get it. So a lot of this is also, a lot of our work also is having these connections to different people and different groups, building relationships and seeing how we can support each other. And since like the more basic or like the more foundational idea of MSDN is to build a health structure that is like the confederalism in Northeast Syria, is like from the bottom up, is focused on the people and not on money. A lot of effort also goes into finding out how we can do that in, like in our utopia. If we could build our dream society, how would a healthcare system look like? How can we give autonomy to the people to treat themselves? How can we build a healthcare system that is focused on the needs of the people? From myself, I was working for a long time in European healthcare, like state healthcare system, and I had a lot of criticisms about how money is more important than people. It's very stressful. From myself working for a really long time in healthcare in the state system, I have a lot of criticism on how there's a lot of like the focus is on money and on the finances rather than on the people. So the insurances want to earn money, the hospitals want to earn money. Hospitals are not just like their purpose nowadays is not to just serve the people and treat people, but they need to create money. And there's a lot of how do you call these things?
Like
so the
privatized, kind of like for profit.
Yeah, it's for profit. So like the hospitals are not necessarily anymore just for the good of the people and for treating sick people, but to earn money, to make a profit, and then to use that profit to redirect it into private pockets of people. And this is development that we can see in many, many different areas of public interest, like resources, food, water, healthcare, all of these things that should be in the hands of the people and should be working for the people are nowadays working for profit and for companies that want to earn as much money as they possibly can. So what we want is to build a healthcare system that is from the people and for the people, where people have agency to decide themselves how much and what kind of healthcare they need and they want, where they can get education so they can treat themselves and their friends. And then if they need further help than this, there is places they can go to. There's hospitals that are focused on the needs of the people, the injured people or the sick people. And their main focus is to treat them and help them to live a good and healthy life.
Amazing. I think that's a really beautiful statement about healthcare system from the people and for the people. How do you kind of see like your medical work like in a revolutionary context? Like you've touched on it already, but I just wondered if there was anything else about kind of living in the region and how that's like influencing you as a medic.
Yeah. So I think the revolutionary view on it is the most important, no, because we don't want to be just another NGO that goes there and gives like donations and takes a few pictures and then grabs money where they can and takes a lot of it for in their own pocket. I think that is a very it's like a view on people that is not seeing them as capable individuals or like on eye to eye level. So we're maybe a small group and we don't have we don't have a lot of money, we don't have a lot of resources, but what we want to do is to learn from the people of North East Syria, because they have now over 10 years experience in a revolutionary context. They have already been building a lot of things. So when we go there, it's not, oh, me as a Western nurse, I have all this knowledge that I'm going to come and bring to you. But they already also have a lot of knowledge. They know things that I've never seen before. And they have been living in this revolutionary context for a really long time. So to like meet them on this level of So to meet them eye to eye on this level of two people with their own amount of knowledge, their own lives, and then learn from each other, and I can bring what I know and they can bring what they know. And then together we can build a system that is actually benefiting the people in the society. And of course, I have a lot of technical knowledge, but I know nothing about Syrian society. Like now I've learned over the years. But in the beginning, it was very confusing because it's a completely different culture. And apart from the culture being different, also the revolutionary context is very new. So there's a lot of things I had to learn before I was even able to bring anything that I had learned. So it's this giving and taking and together building something and having solidarity with the people that are trying to build this system and supporting in whatever is necessary. So that then in the end, we can build like a strong foundation for this.
Amazing. Yeah. Okay, so I know that a number of people were present in the invasions in 2018 and 2019, which, yeah, I can only imagine were like horrific in terms of medical casualties and trauma.
So during the war, both against Turkey and against ISIS, which of course was a bit of a different kind of war, but our group was helping basically wherever it was needed. And of course, it was needed in many places. So we were setting up triage points close to the front line to receive injured, treat them basically so that they would survive the way to the hospital. And then we had an ambulance to transport injured to the nearest hospitals where they could get further treatment. Some of us who had more training would also work in the hospitals or in the surgery rooms and assisting in this way. And then we gave educations to each other also that we could help more in these ways, but also people that are friends of us that didn't have a professional training in medicine or healthcare could play a big role in supporting. Because the war, there's like so many things going on and the situation is so chaotic that even just transporting something or bringing things can be a huge support for everybody around. So people would make, or our friends would make food, they would make tea. Even like singing a song or telling a joke sometimes can be like a really big help. So apart from the medical works of treating injured and transporting them by singing a song or by cheering someone up that's been in a really bad situation, you're already doing so much. And you're showing that you're by the side of the people and you were having commitment to their struggle. So we were doing all of these things as good as we could. And I hope this had a good impact. Oh, I know it had a good impact.
Yeah, I mean, like, I've spoken to some friends and comrades who were there and who came back, and yeah, I'm aware that like a lot of people are affected with things like PTSD, or just kind of, you know, you can't experience that kind of experience, right, and not be changed by it, by that kind of violence and trauma. And yeah, I just wondered, just as a random side question, if you could speak about like traumatic stress or kind of PTSD, and how collectives respond to that, or how it's talked about. I know where there is a lot more kind of collective life and kind of free life together, that people will support each other, I think, much better than, for example, in other kind of alienating industrial countries like in the UK and stuff, for example, where there's a lot of like emotional repression and people being like hyper individualistic. I just wondered if you could speak a little bit about kind of trauma responses.
Yeah, so we were doing some studying on PTSD and trauma, and the thing that impressed me the most was that to prevent PTSD, you actually have to start way before the trauma actually happens. So if I'm going to a stressful situation, for example, if I'm going to war and I know I will encounter a lot of very stressful, very difficult, very traumatizing experiences, but I go there with my friends and with a committed group that we know we will take care of each other, and we know why we're doing this, because we're going to support a revolution that we really believe in. This belief and this mindset already prevents a lot of the possibilities for developing PTSD later on. And what I found interesting in the society in general was there's nothing like psychological healthcare. Like there's no therapists, and people don't really believe in it either. So I was for a long time thinking, how are they going through life with all the things that they've seen? So I've asked the local people also who've been through all of these wars, like, how was it? And what I've learned over the years, why I think the society is still holding on, is because like you said, it's not in our society, everything is so compartmentalized and so split up and people are so alone. But even though they don't really have any kind of professional therapy, and if you talk to them about the experience, you would think that all of them, like every single last person in all of North East Syria, should be incredibly traumatized from the things they've seen. But because their community is so good and so close, and it's not a secret. I feel like in Europe, a lot of times people, they dig this into themselves when they have, like when someone died or something happened. People don't talk about it so much, but they keep it inside. And then it's like this cancer that grows and grows. But in Syria, because everybody experienced these things, it's a very open topic and people talk about it all the time. And the funerals, for example, if someone died, are a very public event and everybody goes there. Like there's not one funeral where not 100 people are coming. And it's this incredible solidarity between all of the people, and they all believe in their revolution. They all believe in this new system that they're trying to build, and they're showing up for each other. And this, holding together and being on the same side, and the solidarity among each other, I feel, is what makes it possible for them, even after all these horrible things they've seen, to still smile and laugh and keep going and work on continue to building the system. Yeah, so this I found very impressive, and it's something that in our group we're now also trying to cultivate, to have this solidarity with each other and taking care of each other and living our lives together. And whatever happens, I know my friends will not leave me alone and they will not run away. So just this feeling then gives me the strength that even if there's a difficult situation, and even if I think maybe I will die, that I will not be alone, and I will not die for nothing. You are in this because you believe in it. So whatever you do, it has meaning. And because everything you do has meaning, even if what you're having to do by treating injured that are really horrifically injured, or going to a situation that is very dangerous because you have to pick someone up somewhere, the meaning behind it makes it so that you can carry this, and you're not carrying it alone, you're carrying it together.
Oh, you just gave me goosebumps. I think that's like a really beautiful perspective, and like I remember being in Palestine last year, and just this prisoner had died of cancer, and just like there was like a national strike, basically, like all the shops closed, like everyone was on the streets, like everyone was in mourning. And my best friend in prison has also been really suffering with cancer for a really long time, but it's been like a very individualized, like lonely experience with like very little support, and just like the contrast between how much everyone connects with everyone because of being in the same like struggle. And it was really like beautiful, even though it was like harrowing, if that makes sense. And I know in Rojava in North East Syria there's like a really massive honoring of like people who have fallen.
Yes, so in the society, it's very impressive to see that even after 10 years of war and thousands of people that died in this war, that every time there's a funeral, and sometimes there's 2 or 3 funerals a week, still hundreds of people show up, and the people are closing their shops and they're leaving their work. Even in the hospital, we closed half of the hospital down every time there was a funeral, and only 1 or 2 people would stay for something urgent. But all of the nurses and doctors would together go to every funeral in the area, and sometimes you would even drive really far to go to attend these funerals, even though there's so many of them. And the spirit of collectivity and of belonging together and seeing meaning in the people dying and what they gave their lives for, it's a really strong and impressive feeling to see that.
I've seen pictures of some of the graveyards because my ex-girlfriend died, Anna Campbell in Afrin, and I know like there's lots of imagery and artwork of her in different spaces, and it's super moving. But just in terms of like the other medical work you've been doing, I think it's on the MSDN blog, but I'm not sure. But I know that your crew have been part of responding to a leishmaniasis outbreak, and I just wondered if you could just like speak about that a little bit, just to show the kind of diversity of the like healthcare work you're all organising.
So the leishmania outbreak is actually a really good example on how we could work together with the local people in whatever was needed in the moment. Because in the start, we didn't know anything about leishmania. We just discovered that we had it ourselves, that we would get these bruises and sore spots, and we didn't know what it was. And we asked our local friends, and they told us that, oh, this leishmania is this thing that a lot of people have right now, and you need to go to the hospital and get these injections once a week. So then we went to the local hospital for ourselves and saw that there was hundreds and hundreds of people waiting in line to get these injections, and it was in the middle of the summer. It was incredibly hot outside, and it took hours and hours for these people to wait because there was not enough nurses to give these injections. So we asked the hospital if they needed help, and offered to do that because we had some other works, but we could pause that. And we didn't really know much about leishmania. We studied up on it, did some research. We asked the local nurses to show us how to do the injections, and then supported in the hospital so that everything would move along a little bit faster and people wouldn't have to wait for so long. And also during this work, we noticed that there was a lot of people coming from villages far away. There's no public transport. A lot of people don't have cars. So they wouldn't come regularly for the injections because they just couldn't go so far. And because we had an ambulance, we made the proposal to the health committee that we could go with our ambulance to the villages rather than all of the villagers coming to the hospital. So then there would be less people waiting in the hospital. People wouldn't have to travel so far, and we could just go village by village and then give the injections in people's homes. And so they gave us the medications and the syringes, and we made lists of the names and the places. And then in total, I think 6 months, we every day went to different directions, different villages, and were able to really work hand in hand with our local friends and learn from them and support in what was needed in the moment.
Wow, yeah, it sounds like really, really important work. And I think it's also a nice example because, like, for example, in the UK, there would just be like so much bureaucracy that it would like never be possible for another collective to like support. Do you know what I mean? Like it would, yeah, just have to be like completely controlled by the state.
The difference between us and a regular NGO is that we are in the place and we can react very spontaneously to things that come up, and we don't have a lot of. So an NGO, what I've seen NGOs do is like they see there's this leishmaniasis problem, so they would send in certain resources, or they would make a plan and then bring the plan to the people and say, oh, you need to make this room for the leishmania, and then you need to use this syringe, and we will give you money from this thing because donations need to be directed to something specific. But then in the place itself, this a lot of times didn't make any sense. So of course the friends would take, or the local hospital friends would take the things that were given to them because they didn't have a lot of resources, but they would not be always able to actually use it in the way that it was thought to be used, because the plan was made by some NGO from somewhere else and then kind of imposed onto the hospital, rather than working directly with the people that work in the hospital and are from the place, who much better know how things work and how the society works and how things can be organized in coherence with how the society moves anyway. So because we were able then to, move along with the stream rather than swim against it, I felt this made a lot more sense.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I definitely found that at the beginning of the pandemic, when a lot of the big NGOs like couldn't, like just from insurance or something, couldn't protect their volunteers, so they just kind of weren't working. Like in northern France, where I work with refugees, whereas like as a grassroots collective, we just had a lot more like freedom to just keep going. But yeah, I know you've also been organising different trainings in the region. I know you mentioned it a little bit already, but I just wondered like what these have involved and like why they're important.
So because we noticed during the war that a lot of local people didn't have a lot of knowledge about medicine and how to treat injured people, we first started with our neighbors and people that we knew to give short 1 or 2 day educations on stopping bleeding wounds, putting on tourniquets, putting bandages, and also how to carry people, how to pick injured people up, and how to transport them. And then after our neighbors, we went also to our city, the different councils, and people, groups that we knew around. For example, there was a youth center in the city where the young people went in the evenings to play sports together or games and do some activities, and then we gave them a 2-day education on basic treatment of wounds and carrying of patients, so that if there was war, again, they would be able to help in this way and support the hospital by transporting injured, or just having some basic idea that if one of their friends or if they would see someone injured, they could help. Now, also from the local structures, there's an academy that gives really long courses to medics and giving long educations about much more in depth than we could ever do this. So it's great to see that our work here is becoming unnecessary and that other people are doing this, because this is kind of the goal we have with all of our work, is to make ourselves unnecessary, or to support as much as it's possible people organizing themselves. And then if they do anyway, it's even better. And if there's something that we can help with, then we will support in this way. What I also remember very impressively from these educations was that apart from the technical knowledge, to tell the local people how important their revolution is and how important the new system of a society that they're building up and how much hope that gives to people outside and people from Europe. That was for them like really surprising, or really giving a lot of motivation to continue after all of the hard times they've been through. And the question we got asked the most was, if you're from Europe, why would you come here? Everybody's trying to run away from here and trying to get to Europe. And you are from this place where you have everything and there's peace and you have money and food and there's no war. Why on earth would you come here? And then to not just pass on technical knowledge, but also give a lot of encouragement to the people and telling them about how we see their developments and how much hope that gives, that it is possible to build a different kind of society and that it is possible to build a system that nourishes peace and understanding between different cultures and brings people together and nurtures solidarity between people. That is really amazing for us, and that we would risk a lot of, we would risk our lives to come and support this if it comes to that. And that was very impressive for them to see, but also for us as a reminder, why are we working in this place specifically rather than in any other place in the world?
Yeah, amazing. I'm aware I'm taking up a lot of your time. I just wondered if you could share a little bit about some of the challenges you've experienced with the work, and also like what solidarity like people can organize, like who aren't living in the region.
I think a lot of the frustrations I had to deal with was cultural differences that can create misunderstandings. Like I have a certain way that I learned how to behave, or that I was trained to do things, and then having to work with people that are very, very different from me. In the beginning was very difficult, but after you understand, like, where is it coming from? Why are they doing things a certain way? And just to see that also how I think things should be is also just my culture influencing me. It's not the best way or not the only way, but it's just what I learned in my context. But there's also other contexts and there's other ways to do things. And to bring this together and work together rather than working against each other and finding compromises, and learning also for myself to like let go of things and find different ways, or also to bring things that I think are important to people that maybe don't initially believe me. For example, I learned to be very sensitive especially with children when they're injured. That I saw in the area a lot of people are way more rough than in Europe you would ever be. So for me, that was difficult to see in the beginning, that people would be so rough with injured children. But I also don't want to be the person that then goes there and says, oh, this is wrong, or you're making a mistake, or you shouldn't do this like this, because, they don't know me that well and I'm from somewhere else and I don't want to have this attitude. So it took a while of getting to know each other and feeling out how we're communicating. And then after a while, rather than criticizing them for the way that they were doing it, I would just do what I learned and kind of show passively of like, look, you can also treat an injured kid in a different way. And then I saw them picking up on it after a while. So I think if you have the approach of, I know something and I know more than you, then you will get very frustrated because they will obviously reject this and say, I don't believe you, or I'm contradicting you, or this is how we've always done it. Why should I listen to you now? But if you approach them as a friend and as with patience and getting to know each other first, and then saying like, oh, this is how I do it. Interesting, you do it different, but maybe we can talk about it. Then I found these frustrations that build up, you can resolve them and, treat each other with respect and patience rather than getting annoyed by difficult situations.
For sure, yeah. And yeah, what do you think people can offer in terms of like solidarity or support, like who aren't living in the region?
So for me, a good first step is always to get to know the people that I want to work with. For example, in Europe, there's a lot of culture center from Syrian friends, Kurdish friends, also other migrant movements that I can go there, I can get to know the people, I can listen to their life stories and see what they struggle with. And then when I get to know them and become friends with them, I can see if there's possibilities that I can support, if I have different skills that could be useful in this context. For example, as a nurse, I can support people with their health problems. Now in North East Syria, I can work in hospitals. We are doing all the work that we've been talking today about. I can use my skills rather than for a normal job that is in my own interest to earn money. I can use this skill as a health worker in a liberatory sense that I can offer it to the people and see what is needed and how can I support. And I think for everybody, this is an option that whatever skills I have, whatever things I've learned, I can reflect on, is there ways that I can use this to build a world that I would like to see for the future. You know, like, of course, obviously, we all need to survive and we all need to pay our rent and buy food, so we need some money. But other than just using my skills for a normal job in the capitalist system, I can find ways, or I can build ways if there are not any already, to use my skill to build the world that I actually want to see and support movements and support the people around me, support my community with my skills that is outside of the frame of money and profit, but is building a community on the ground with my neighbors, with the people around me, and with people that need my support. And then I can also get support from other people. And in this way, we can build a society that is more collective and working together. Yeah. And for our network as MSDN, if people are already having different health initiatives or projects that they are working on, they can always connect to us. They can send us an email or a little message on Twitter and connect to us, get to know us. We can share about their projects and maybe we can do some educations together, talk about the world we dream of. So in this sense, people can always send us messages if they want to and support our work, and we can support their work if we can.
Yeah, for sure. And also, I know many people listening to this podcast are interested or passionate about herbal medicine, and I know that there's a few herbal medicine projects in the region, like at Jimois and Sifijin, and I just wondered if you had any relationship with these and if you could speak about them at all. I'm definitely going to try and do a podcast interview with folks involved in them at some point in the future.
Yeah, I know they exist. I wasn't very close to these projects, but I know they exist among many other projects about health, or especially women health. They're doing many different projects now. Like there's this academy for medics. There's, like you said, Jinwar. There's a village for women only, where they have a woman clinic where they treat more like only basics, but they treat the basic health problems of women, and they are researching into what plants grow in the area, what plants can we bring here, what medical substances are in them, and for what can we use them, and how they're making their own medications and creams, so that they can use them and give them to the people, and also give a lot of education. There's Congress Star is the organization for all of the women in the society, and they have a separate health structure also. And they go around from community to community and give educations and talk with the women about what do you need, what problems do you have in your social life, but also in your health, or what problems do your children have? Can we find solutions for this? So it's like all of the things they do there is very basic, very like close to the people. So if people are interested in the herbal medicine, for example, there's a few places where they're doing a lot of research on this. They're growing their own plants. They're making medicine out of them and then going around and giving educations to people of how to use them and spreading them. So they are always looking for people that want to come and learn and support this work. If you have already experience with this, it's great. But even if not, it's a work that for women is very easy to join. I think that's the only condition in this field, is that it's very women-centered. So for male friends, it will not be possible to join it. But for women that want to go to Rojava or want to support this work, there's a lot of opportunities to do that.
Amazing. Yeah, it's definitely something I would love to do in the future. Okay, thank you so much for your time. Was there anything else you wanted to share at all? I think what you're doing is really incredible and really important work.
No, thank you. I think I've said a lot. The interview was really long and really great. Thank you for inviting me. Yeah, just like if people want to get in touch with us, I can say again, we have the Twitter account, we have a website. We'll post articles once in a while. People can send us messages. If they want to collaborate with us or want to get to know us, we can see how we can work together, how we can dream of a new society together, how we can build a healthcare system that we want to see that's for the people, for our society and for our friends. And I hope to see you all soon.
Thanks so much for listening to the Frontline Herbalism podcast. You can find the transcript, the links, all the resources from the show at solidarityApothecary.org/podcast.